Welcome to TGSAnime, my Yugioh weekly podcast where we talk all things card game, and this week we are expanding our pool to talk about Magic the Gathering with our special guest Emma. She used to be the #1 ranked player in Magic the Gathering arena in the world, which I think is very impressive. I don't think I'll ever get that close with Yugioh, even online, let alone in paper. And so I spoke to her all about the differences between Yugioh and Magic, what we like about each one, strengths, weaknesses, all sorts of fun little conversation pieces there, so hopefully you enjoy. Next week we'll also be playing a game called Bad, Based or Banned, where I'll be testing her on some Yu-Gi-Oh cards based on her Magic the Gathering expertise, whether she thinks they're good cards or bad cards or banned cards. But you'll have to watch out for that on the YouTube. I won't waste any more time. I would like to thank my subscribers from TikTok and Patreon, who you can see on the left. Thank you very much, everybody. And now I would love to let you hear my conversation with Emma. So until next week, you can say goodbye to this old face, and I'll see you very soon. Have fun. Bye. Welcome to TGSAnime, Emma. This is my little Yu-Gi-Oh podcast where I've invited lots of different content creators from around the internet to come talk about the game that they love, which is Yu-Gi-Oh! But I want to talk about the game that I love and the game that you love, which is Magic the Gathering. If you want to introduce yourself, just for the people who may not have seen your content before.
Awesome. Hi, my name's Emma. I go by Emma Skyward on the internet. You can find me on everything under Emma Skyward. I play Magic the Gathering competitively for the past 5 years. I was ranked #1 in the world for a little while, and I play both paper and I play on the computer. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Were you ranked #1 in the world in paper or on the arena?
On arena. I don't know if there's actually a ranking for. I guess there used to be like player points as a system to rank paper players, but It doesn't exist very much anymore.
I can't imagine how they track that anymore.
Yeah. I guess the equivalent now would be like world champion, which I am not. I did not win the world championship in paper, but I was ranked #1 on arena for a little while.
And you started.
I beat arena. Yeah.
You finished it.
Now I don't play anymore. It's over.
It's over. It's done. What's the point? You told me you started on arena. So what was the pipeline from not playing to playing on arena to being the #1 person in the world at Magic Arena?
The pipeline was, I was actually already streaming on Twitch before I started playing Magic, and I realized I was really bad at MOBAs and I was really bad at MMOs, and I was like, what else is there? The answer was card games, and Arena had pretty recently come out, and I was like, let's give it a whirl. Let's see if I'm any good at it. And turns out I was really good at it. For the first time in my life, I was good at a video game. I'd never been good at a game before, so that was kind of exciting for me. And then I got obsessed, and it was bad. And I spent
What was bad? But it's not anymore. It's all good now.
I beat it. We're done. I spent many long nights getting rank 1, and some tears. There were some tears involved, but I did it. And I got a screenshot, and it's worth it.
Got proof. Can never got to save that in 17 different computers. You do not want to lose that.
Never.
What kind of deck do you play in Magic? So assume that we know nothing about Magic, which is fairly accurate for me. So it's 5 colors, and the colors tend to have preferences in terms of how they play, in terms of aggro on red and control on blue, etc. So what's your style?
My favorite way to play Magic. I will play any deck. I will play any deck it takes to win. But my favorite ways to play is to play creature-based decks. We like to call them aggro, because you tend to win through attack damage, turning your creature sideways and doing damage. My favorite color to play is green, and green is pretty much best known for having big creatures, like good and big creatures, and that is how I like to play Magic. That's my favorite way to go. I also enjoy themed decks, so decks with like typal synergies that would be like elves or humans or vampires. I like those types of decks. So when they're actually relevant in the meta, I tend to thrive.
Are they not always so relevant?
No, not always. There's some good creature killing cards every now and then, so it's hard to play those synergistic decks.
What is like the meta right now? Like what's good right now in Magic? Is it all countery stuff? Is it all monsters all the time? How's it looking to be you right now?
That's a really difficult question for Magic because we run so many different formats.
True.
Every format can be different at any given time. Standard is different from Modern, which is different from Legacy, at all times, pretty much. So,
what's your sort of go-to, though, on sort of paper play? Do you have a format that you stick to more, or do you like to flip between?
My favorite paper format right now is Pioneer, which is actually the newest format that Magic came out with. It's a paper format that includes all cards from Ixalan forward, and no fetches. Like a interesting.
No
it
fetches.
Has its own ban list.
So no search cards or.
No, we refer to fetches are fetch lands specifically in Magic. There are search cards, but there are no fetch lands in Pioneer.
And for anyone who doesn't know, lands are the system that the whole of Magic is built on. You can play one per turn normally. You can cheat more out with special cards and special monsters. And if you want to summon something, you have to tap the land, which is turning it sideways, which is sort of marked that it's expensed. If you have played other card games like Hearthstone, you have your little gems on the bottom, and when you use the gems, they go dark. That's the same as tapping a land. And many other card games have mana systems. Yu-Gi-Oh is probably in the minority of not having any kind of mana system at all. How do you feel? Obviously, you like it because you play it. But are there things? Have you tried many other card games? I know you've played a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh, and you've obviously played a lot of Magic.
Yeah, I've played a decent mid amount of Yu-Gi-Oh, and I've also played Flesh and Blood as well.
I haven't even seen a Flesh and Blood card. What's the sort of energy of Flesh and Blood? What's it like?
Flesh and Blood is. Gosh, I don't even know how to describe it in comparison. I think it's probably closer to Magic than it is to Yu-Gi-Oh. I would put it on the Magic spectrum.
A mana system and like landy type things.
Yeah, it runs like you can, in a way, like discard cards in order to get currency to expend to play cards.
Okay.
So you're pitching cards to get currency to play other cards.
That makes sense.
So it does run a mana like currency system that Yu-Gi-Oh does not, but it's and it has a similar system of Magic in the terms of like attack phases and combat damage.
Okay. As someone who's given it all to Magic, but you have dabbled in Yu-Gi-Oh, how have you felt going between the games? You've played your games of Magic, now you're loading up your Yu-Gi-Oh. I presume you're probably quite good at Yu-Gi-Oh just from the fact that you are the world's #1 player at Magic. I would assume that you know how to win a game or two at Yu-Gi-Oh, even with like minimal investment.
I think with Yu-Gi-Oh you have to really study the deck. Like with Magic, you can kind of just pick up a deck and like read the cards, and you're like, okay, I know how to play this game. With Yu-Gi-Oh, it's like, at least for me as a new player, I can't just pick up a Yu-Gi-Oh deck and read the cards and understand it. It doesn't work that way. Like I have to watch a YouTube video or someone has to explain to me the combo. I'm not just going to figure it out from looking at the cards. So it's got its own complexity in that way. I think Yu-Gi-Oh has a much higher barrier of entry in terms of understanding than Magic. And I think Magic has a higher skill cap at the very top of the game.
I've never watched a competitive Magic match, so I can't comment on like the skill ceiling of Magic. I think you're right. It's like a massive barrier of entry, and I've changed my mind on this like recently because I look at a Magic card, and to me it means nothing because they expect you to have knowledge of keywords. But yes, while Yu-Gi-Oh does explain everything on a card, like it explains like you add this and you do this and this is the cost per card. You don't have to learn any kind of keywords. Outside of the keywordness of it, there's so much to intuit with Yu-Gi-Oh! In terms of they're playing something to do something. Like, let's say I activate warrior reinforcements of the army, which lets me add any warrior from my deck to my hand. You, as a player who's never seen the deck before, you know I'm adding something, but you don't know what the consequences of me adding that thing could be. The thing I add could be on add to hand, summon, deal damage, all that sort of gunk. For example, there's a card called Branded Fusion. Did you come across that when you were playing?
Probably.
Yeah.
What does it do?
So it lets the player fuse from the deck. So instead of it lets you do a fusion summon for a fusion monster, by sending the materials that you'd need from the deck to the graveyard. And for you to know that, it means you know that there's a fusion monster coming. If you'd never seen the deck before, you might not think to negate it, because you might think that's just one fusion monster. However, anyone who's in the game knows, well, they're going to summon the guy that lets them summon the second guy, which lets them summon the third guy. So you know that you cannot let that first summon happen, because if you know, you know that there's like 7 more coming. But if you don't know, you might think, well, I'm going to wait until they summon it, and then I'll negate the next thing. But you just don't know what your choke points are. And I think knowing those choke points is such a big thing in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because if you miss the choke point, you're over. Like, if you miss, like, the train, they're going for it. You have to cut them off early.
It's the point of interaction. And there's formats in Magic where that matters a lot as well, especially in, like, high-level Commander. It's really important. There's 2-player formats where it matters as well, but even like there's politicking in high-level Commander too. It's like, who's going to counter the thing that's going to end the game if we don't counter it?
Yeah.
So it's not irrelevant, but I think for the general like Magic the Gathering game, you can go to a Friday Night Magic and play a fairly competitive game of Magic with a deck you've never read before, which is, I think, at least reasonable. And the keywords, at least, you can look them up on your phone, and there's a 2-sentence description of most of them. So.
Once you know, you know. I think, as a young person looking at both, I was like, well, I like this because it tells me everything. But whilst Magic tells you less, there's less to know in terms of those keywords, because they are just what they are, and you've learned them forever. Yeah. Whereas every single card in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is its own thing. There's no, sometimes there's cards that are similar, but they're never the same card twice. You have to learn them all. And if you don't know them all, then you don't know what you're going to get used on you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you played it. How did you find it?
Yes. I get really obsessed with things at the start, and either I'll hold on to them or let them go. So for about a week, I was obsessed with Master Duel because I was like, yeah, new game, I love it, Master Duel. And that was my introduction to Yu-Gi-Oh!, which was pretty efficient because I could play it in my house at my computer. I didn't have to talk to people.
No.
And I could have a couple of friends, or a YouTube video to sort of go over the basics with me. And the nice thing is, you lose a match, you just boot up another one, and you learn from the next match. What you didn't learn from the first one. But there wasn't a lot, I guess, in Master Duel to keep me beyond, like, the ranked system felt a little, especially early, a little flawed. Because I got to, like, the highest rank in, like, a day, and I was like, I don't know how to play this game. This doesn't seem right.
They have heavily nerfed the speed you rank up. Like, I've been playing it, I don't play it regularly, I, like, dip in every couple of months, and then play it for, like, a month, and then I dip out. And it's, like, I just, like, yesterday, I got a 20 duel win streak, and I was like, if this was the old, I'd probably be, like, in the top cut right now, and like, what I mean, just because I remember when you used to get like a win streak, you would just zoom up the ranks so fast. You'd win like 3 duels in a row, and you'd go from gold 5 to gold 1 instantly. Like, it was like really quick. They've really toned that down for better and worse in terms of it was very fun going zoom all the way up to the top. But
it was fun, but then at the top I was concerned that there wasn't a whole lot more like value out of the game, out of Master Duel, unless I decided to get invested in like paper Yu-Gi-Oh! Right then and there, and I wasn't prepared to do that.
Are you saying that you don't want to take the plunge in 2 massive competitive card games that both have very, very fluctuating prices and secondary markets?
I did buy a box of Yu-Gi-Oh! I believe, and that was fun, but that was as far as I got.
No more. I think, as someone who, if you don't fall in love with it, I feel that's probably like a safe amount of money to spend on Yu-Gi-Oh! At any point. Do you think you'll ever go back to it? Like, obviously, they add content here and there, so you can make some content out of it. Do you think you'd ever go back?
I think I would if there weren't other games that I was interested in that were like card game and strategy-esque games. Like we talked about Arcana a little bit and Flesh and Blood a little bit and Marvel Snap. We didn't talk about Marvel Snap.
I haven't played it yet, but I have installed it, ready for playing. I'm very excited to start it. I've heard good things. It's by the guys who made Hearthstone originally, isn't it? Like it's yeah. What would you say? What's it like? My friend said it was more like a board game than a card game. You have to like build and wait for stuff.
I don't know if I agree with that. It's a really simplistic principle, and the games are very short, which is nice, but there is enough math and enough competition in the 6 turns that it's engaging.
You say 6 turns is short, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is normally over by turn 3, so I think that's like, wow, so long. How am I gonna keep myself awake during 6 turns? I need my Yu-Gi-Oh! Dopamine.
Well, 6 turns is short for Magic, so
is it? What's like a normal Magic time?
8 to 10 maybe.
How would you react if I told you that my last locals tourney, we had a turn 1, not each, the original turn 1 on one player that lasted 20 minutes?
That doesn't surprise me from what I know about Yu-Gi-Oh! That the turns are as long as they are. So not shocked.
No.
I would think actually the game length nets out to be very similar in Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic. I think Magic winds up being grindier more often. Like there's games that just you have to grind out that take time. That'll take 50 minutes on the clock. And then you'll go to turns after time.
You get turns after time. We don't even get turns anymore. They took that away from us. We
still get turns.
We used to get, I think in some countries it used to be I think in Japan you might get 2 turns after time. Everywhere else, and it may be Japan now as well, I don't know, but it used to be you had till the end of the turn, so you can finish the turn you're on. Now you can't, you have to finish the phase you're on. So if you were in main phase 1 and you didn't get to battle phase before the end of time, you don't get to attack. It's end of main phase 1. And so there have been literal games where as the time has gone, I've gone like, battle phase, declare, just so I'm in the battle phase so that I can finish the phase that I'm in.
That's shocking. That's shocking. That's so strange.
That's the reason why people don't care about life points in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because like the only life point that matters is your last until game 3 when you have time. Because at the end of time, at the end of that phase, let's say it's main phase 1, neither player got to do anything. It's a draw unless one person has more life points. And so we will have side cards that are bad in normal Yu-Gi-Oh! People in Tier Element, which is a deck that sends loads of cards from the top of your deck, people were putting in this really bad card called Skull Marked Ladybird, which its effect is just, if this card goes to graveyard, gain 1,000 life points. Because in time, when you're out of phases, you can just send as many cards as you can from the top of your deck to the graveyard, hope that you hit a Skull Marked Ladybird that will give you 1,000 life points, and then you've won because you have more life points than the opponent. You have ended the turn on more, so you've won.
That's wild. That's wild.
Yeah, I don't know if it's good or bad, but it is what it is.
That's the thing. Yeah, that's definitely a very big difference between the 2 games.
Yeah, playing under time when you can only finish one phase is like stressful. Like it's like the most stressful thing, especially when you're sort of judging it before you're on time. Like you get 40 minutes for the game for 3 games, and when you're on like the middle of game 2 and you can see that you've only got like 20 minutes left, you're like, oh my god, I'm not gonna get any time to play game 3. Like it's not great.
I don't like to play decks that go to time. Like, there's definitely decks in Magic where you're like, this is gonna be a long game if I play this deck. I don't like to play those kinds of decks.
No.
I like to finish in 20 minutes with the game and be done.
Same.
Go get a snack.
One way or the other. Lose in 20 or win in 20. You want to be gone.
That's my plan.
Same. I like to play burst decks that try and win quick. But that means if you don't win quick, if you like don't quite get that burst damage enough in the beginning, and they're on like the grindy decks, then they grind forever, and you just have to wait for them to kill you, really, more than anything. But it is what it is. You played Sky Striker, and I think that's a really good deck to learn to play with. And if anything, it's a little bit more like Magic because it's all like quick play spells, so you can play them like instances. What if you were to go back to Yu-Gi-Oh? Do you think you'd try like more aggro stuff? Because you played that's kind of like a control strategy. It's like a control with poking. What kind of thing would you go for?
I think aggro being my play style in Magic, I would probably enjoy picking it up in Yu-Gi-Oh! But Yu-Gi-Oh! Also has a way wider variety of like card aesthetics and interesting themes, and I am the type of person who can be very tempted by like a theme that I enjoy. So I might have to look into Yu-Gi-Oh more to see if there's like. One time I was playing Master Duel and I got absolutely devastated by a deck full of anthropomorphic trains.
The trains.
And I was not happy, but also amazed. I was like, why are there trains in this game?
Rank 10,
And why are
best
they
deck.
killing me?
Trains are sick.
Why are they... Why though? And then, but now I'm thinking I need to go back to Yu-Gi-Oh and find my thing. It's not trains, but it's like...
But there will be one
sushi
for
boats
you.
or something. Yeah, there's like sushi boats that... I don't know.
Ships. And you got to get the recipe right, and if you get the recipe right, they have more effects.
It's crazy, and I think
so
that would be a
many
fun
cool
way to
things.
play Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah. One of my favorite new decks. It's not quite... It's winning tournaments, but it's not like the best deck. Yeah, I think it's like tier 2. It's called Vanquish Soul. It's based on fighting games, so all the characters in it look entirely different, and their effects are based on button combos. So you show cards in your hand, and depending on what combo of cards you show, they get different attacks. They've got a heavy attack and a light attack, like a fighting game. So one will be like... So let's say the Ryzen, they've all got a good effect anyway. So this is an 1800 attack, so it's like sort of your middle tier, level 4 easy summon. If you show, I think, a fire and an earth, he cannot be destroyed. I mean, no, if you show just a fire, he can't be destroyed by card effects this turn. So that's his his little skill. Or if you show a dark and a fire, or an earth and fire, I can't remember which color, he can destroy all the spells in his column. You can't do both effects. You have to choose between them, and you input the button mashes. Like their bosses, you can either show an earth and it becomes unaffected by everything for the turn, or you show a dark, an earth, and a fire, and it lets you pop anything, one card. So it's like heavy and light. It's a very fun deck.
See, that sounds ridiculous, but we have like the ring tempting you in Magic, which is also ridiculous. So I think it's one of those things. It's like both card games sound more complicated and harder than they are. Because you asked me, I'm like, the ring tempts you is so easy. Like it makes total sense. And then I'm sure for you, you're like the button mashing card combos it makes a ton of sense. And for me, listening to it, I'm like, what? What are you talking about?
I think a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh is muscle memory. I feel like you just learn it and then you know to do it. You know what I mean? Like it's not like you do it without thinking after a while. And I think probably the same with Magic as well. I think that is what causes barrier of entry, because I can just be like, just do the thing, just play the good deck, and you need to be able to like take a step back and be like, actually, I know this because I've played this game for 20 years, not because it's easy.
That's true.
Yeah. If what kind of... So you've talked about green. I know green has a lot of Beastie Boys. They've got elves. They've got loads of kinds of... Do you have... What's your aesthetic in terms of deck? Like, you're not trains, clearly. You hate the trains.
No, I hated trains.
But, you know, what if I were to say, you know, if give you a picture between, you know, a little anime boy or like a dinosaur from Jurassic Park, like what would be like, what's your vibe?
Pretty girls.
Pretty girls?
I just thought pretty girls. Yeah, very early into my time playing Magic, I tried to put together a deck that was themed around only unicorns and pretty girls. And that was the theme. It was terrible. Worst deck ever. But I was very invested in the theming. I don't know. I like cards. We have tons of talented artists that are a very like rich part of the Magic community. Like a lot of us have developed like favorite artists who work on cards, and we tend to have a lot of the same artists back. Is that the same with Yugioh? Do you have a lot?
Well, the thing is, in Yu-Gi-Oh, the artists aren't allowed to disclose if they work on cards. There are very... We do not, as part of whatever agreement, we do not have the artists listed on Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and the artists who work on Yu-Gi-Oh cards aren't allowed to publicly advertise that they do them. So we know some, and we only know a few because their art style is so the same. That yeah. There's a lady who does the Charmer cards. I think they're... I can't remember. But the person who does the Charmer cards, they look like a bunch of anime girls. Their art style is so distinct, you cannot mistake it for anything. And so that artist is known. But, you know, I couldn't tell you who did... Let's say Counterspell was a Yu-Gi-Oh card. I couldn't tell you who did the art for that because... And you can tell when it's the same one because you can see it, like, sometimes. But you do not know who they are. We know a few. And maybe the ones that don't work there anymore that have come out after leaving. But we know a few, but there's some that you just we do not know the artists for. But there are preferences. There are preferences in terms of the art style. There are some cards that just do not look like Yu-Gi-Oh cards. There's a series called the Dragon Rulers, and they look like Magic cards.
Oh, they do. Yeah, that's unusual.
You can have the same game where I'm dropping Dragon Ruler of Blasters and I'm getting walled because he's got 2 Melfi Catties, and the Melfi Catties are just too good to get past. You know what I mean? Like I love that. I love that we don't have to put that in like a joke set. And I do love the idea of joke sets because I think it's so cool that you can have like creative cards. Like there's so many cool Magic joke cards. I like the James Bond Goblin guy who's getting the laser on the table. I love all the cards where they have like holes in it, like in the aesthetic of it. But the fact that there might be one day a Yu-Gi-Oh card that does that is actually just a real card that you can use, it does appeal to me.
It is kind of special in a way where, I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh does follow its own lore and it has its own history from the anime, but Magic is pretty aggressive about its story and its plot line and its long-standing repeating characters. And I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh has that as well, but we don't veer too far from the line of like traditional fantasy. Now we have the Universes Beyond sets, which are like Doctor Who and Final Fantasy and Lord of the Rings, which is, I like them because they bring new players to the community, but for a long time we didn't veer outside of classical fantasy.
I'm not gonna lie, I like it in Magic because it's not my game. I feel like if it was Yu-Gi-Oh, I would be much more unhappy. I don't know, I love it as Magic. I love looking at all the little cards and the new art styles. And they do put effort into Magic to at least try and make them look a bit more, maybe not so much for the Transformers ones, but I've seen like the Lord of the Ring art looks like Magic cards. They just happen to be Lord of the Ring characters. But yeah, I feel like maybe if it was my game, I might be a bit more precious about it. But as it's your game, I love the fact that they've been adding all these cool stuff. I'm looking forward to getting those Doctor Who Command decks. But no, like it's been a really interesting experience. And I've played Magic on Arena. I played Magic at secondary school when my friend would bring in 3 decks and he'd like, do you want to play with the black one, the green one, or the white one? And I'd be like, oh no. But I think it's because of that high fantasy that I never super connected with it. And that's not even much because I don't not like fantasy. I love Lord of the Rings. I love real fantasy and dark fantasy and those stuff. But I love them in different ways. You know what I mean? There's that real connection of me and Yu-Gi-Oh that's just been there since the show. And like you say, I kind of like that the Yu-Gi-Oh art style is a bit more cartoony and like fun, and I like that Magic is serious. But sometimes I look at Magic cards and they just like look gross. It's like a cat getting like half melted by acid or something. Like, there you go. That's like and I'm gonna run it because it's a good card. But like, it's not like I want to look at it. Like,
they can be a little dark. It's definitely on the darker side.
Yeah. Did you watch the show the Yu-Gi-Oh show growing up? I think it's a shame that Magic doesn't. I guess, does Magic have books and things like lore books and stuff?
Yes, we have books, and I think we were supposed to be getting a Netflix show and an anime adaptation.
Really?
I don't know if it's still coming. We heard about it a couple years ago, and we haven't heard about it since. So hopefully it's still gonna come. No, I did not watch Yu-Gi-Oh growing up, and I think that might be part of like why it makes so little sense. Like all of the archetypes and like all of the things that you can encounter in Yu-Gi-Oh just seem so arbitrary because I have nothing to attach them to.
Yeah, I think 100%. I think attachment through play is a one thing. In the same way that I imagine you're probably quite attached to some of the Sky Striker cards because you've actually played them.
Yeah.
I think you build those connections by playing the game. And if you're not playing the game, you build them by watching the show. But if you're not doing either, then you're not gonna like build that kind of connection to them. And in the same way, you know, like a weapon, like you care about it because of what you've done with it, not because of like where it came from or like, you know what I mean. Like I do find it interesting. I think we do have lore. I like that we have lore in like bubbles. So we have this series of about a year ago, this story called the Abyss story. So this is like all set in one continent, and so it's like this one character called Albaz, and he goes over and meets this tribe, and that's one deck, and then he goes over and meets another tribe, and that's another deck, and some of them are at war, and some of them are friends, and there's like you see a story through the art, but all of that is very separate from like your Dark Magicians or something. Like he's not going to meet Dark Magician. He's meeting like these characters in this particular world, and then that story is done. Like right now, that story's kind of been put on pause. They had the big final battle against the big evil boss, and that story's kind of resolved. We've got a new story, which is about this guy called Visus, and he's going to different planets in like the multiverse, and he's meeting versions of himself. So it's like, I'm the nice one, I'm the evil one, I'm the like one's like a beast master, and it's just like versions of himself, and there's a different ones. And this next set that's just come out in Japan that isn't out here yet, that's going to be starting a new story called well, we don't know what it's called yet 100%. We've added a new main character, for want of a better word, called Diabellstar. And it's just going to be about her stealing different treasures from different archetypes. So you're going to get an archetype, a different deck for each of these treasures that she's stealing. And so you follow characters, and then there's like little lore that isn't real lore. So there's like, obviously there's like cards like Counterspell that are just sort of good staple cards. And they'll sometimes have like the same characters reappear in both. Like there's this guy called Marauding Captain, and he's just on a lot of art. He's just like a little guy with a sword. And sometimes you'll see him falling into a hole, and then he'll be like climbing out of the hole in a different art, or he'll be like punching a guy, and then in the next art it's him like having a break from punching the guy, and he's having like some soup or something. You know what I mean? Like, so that you see characters, you see characters come back over and over, but it's not like it matters. It's like it's very loosey goosey, fun first.
That's clever. I like that. You like follow the character through the art.
Yeah, and that's fun. Probably wouldn't play almost any of those cards together, but you can see it if you like looked at the pictures. Yeah.
Magic has those too. I don't know. There's a lot of similarities between all of the card games that I play. But like I said earlier, my brain can't hold all the details together without like binding them in some sort of easy wrapper.
No. And that's what Master Duel and Arena and like Hearthstone and all the equivalents are all for. We're meant to be getting. They announced a Digimon one at some point. If they ever make one, I would very much recommend. There are some Lorcana Sims now as well. But no, it's been lovely talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. This was great.
Brilliant. I'll talk to you again soon, I hope.
Sounds good.